Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio, and I'm a little bit croaky, but I want to tell you about Blissey. Because you see, Blissey is still winning. Blissey is one of those amazing Pokemon that's never been at the front of the format. And yet, fairly often, Blissey just comes right back out again with another winning deck that we need to start taking rather seriously. So let's have a look at Blissey, shall we? Now, Blissey is a Pokemon that I have played around with so many times in so many different ways, but for those of you that haven't, we're talking about the one from Lost Thunder. Now, this one has got 160 HP, which is high. It's got an ability that lets you remove a special condition from your active. It doesn't make you immune to special conditions, but it does mean that you'll never have one for more than a single turn. And it's got the attack Powerful Slap. For a minimum 3 colourless energy, you flip a coin for every energy on Blissey, and you do 80 damage for each heads that you flip. So the theory with Blissey is always the same. Pile energy on, cross your fingers, we flip lots of heads. We don't have anything in the game at the moment that we can actually use to try and increase the chances of hitting heads. We don't have any of those cards. So the theory here really needs to be, alright, let's get as much energy on as we can. If we cannot make sure we flip heads, let's get lots of energy on so we got more flips and more chances of getting more heads. How do we get the energy on? Well, a lot of you have probably guessed it by now. It's Porygon Z. I adore Porygon Z. I am utterly convinced that at some point, Porygon Z will be at the centre of one of the very best decks we have. I'm not convinced anyone's going to find it, but I'm convinced there is a Porygon Z deck out there that is game-breaking. It just lets you attach as many special energy as you like during your turn. That's kind of helpful, because of course Blissey essentially demands that you have as much energy on there as you can possibly get. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out at this point what we're doing is piling energy on using Porygon, and then flipping lots of coins with Blissey, and absolutely going for it. And that is largely the deck. Now there is another Pokemon here which is kind of a little bit like cheating here. It is Jirachi. Now look, we've talked about Jirachi a million times. It's got the ability that lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You find a trainer card, you put it into your hand, and then you go to sleep. But this is the Jirachi deck that doesn't play a skateboard. We don't need a skateboard. You see, what we've got is Blissey. Remember how I told you a moment ago about the ability for Blissey, whereby you can just remove a special condition from your active Pokemon? Yeah, that. Exactly that. Jirachi goes to sleep, but you don't care because Blissey gets rid of the sleep, and you don't actually use tools, you use Recycle Energy. Recycle Energy is an energy that when it gets discarded from play, it bounces back to your hand. And we're playing Porygon Z, so we can attach this during our turn as often as we like. And we do. You attach your Recycle Energy, retreat Jirachi, goes back to your hand, attach it somewhere else. And we're absolutely golden. Now, in terms of other Pokemon, one of the biggest additions in the Sword and Shield sets has been Krammer V. Krammer V here is awesome. Krammer V lets you discard all the energy attached to it, and then do 160 to one of your opponent's Pokemon, active or bench. Oh look, free Recycle Energy. And then of course the Recycle Energy all gets bounced back to your hand, so you can just reattach it instantly. Oh look how that worked out. Elsewhere we've got a copy of Oricorio. It's a single prize deck other than the Cramorant. So Oricorio that lets you draw 3 cards every time you have a Pokemon KO'd, or the turn after. That sounds pretty good to me. That sounds like it could be kind of useful. We've also got ourselves a copy of Mew to protect our bench, and 1 copy of Gossifleur. This is the one that also came out in Sword and Shield, and for 1 colourless energy, search your deck for 3 basics, pop them on your bench. You need to get your Chanseys to evolve into Blissey, your Porygons to evolve up into your Porygon Z, etc. This can be extremely useful. Now, in terms of energy here, this is one of the decks where the energy line is extremely important. I've already mentioned recycle energy. We play 4 of them because you can keep reusing them. We do play triple acceleration energy here. We got 4, and they fall off at the end of your turn. Wait a second. They fall off at the end of your turn. Why are we still so keen to play them? Because it's awesome. It's free colorless energy, which means free extra coins being flipped. And in that situation, it's totally worth it. Absolutely worth it. We've then got 3 copies of Twin Energy. It's 2 colorless energy and it doesn't fall off at the end of your turn. And then a couple copies of Draw Energy. When you attach them, you draw a card. Bit of extra draw power. In terms of Pokemon Search, we've got Quick Ball for our basics. We've got Evolution Incense for our Evolution Pokemon. And we've got Pokemon Communication for whatever we want. Swap a Pokemon in your hand for 1 in your deck. Obviously, Rare Candy becomes extremely important here. And we actually play Pokénav. Most decks don't play Pokénav. This deck plays Pokénav, one of the very few that actually does. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, find yourself a Pokemon or energy card and put it into your hand. Okay, it's only the top 3 cards, but it does let you look for that special energy, which is pretty important in this particular deck. Now, in terms of our supporter line here, it's all the old favourites. It's Cynthia, shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 6 cards. It's Marnie, where you only get 5. Remember, you don't shuffle into your deck, you put on the bottom of your deck after shuffling. But you get 5, your opponent gets 4. So it also really, really helps in terms of just slowing your opponent down. That kind of helps quite nicely. And then we got Professor Magnolia. Discard your hand, draw 7 cards. It's actually Professor's Research, but you know what we mean. Now, this one can be a little bit scary because, of course, you've got to kind of watch for, discarding stuff you want, which is why we only play the 1. Now, in terms of Pokemon tools, and we do have a few to the point we're even playing Adventure Bag, I owe you a very slight apology. You see, there is actually a single copy of a skateboard here. It's not important like it is in other Jirachi decks, and still, find me another Jirachi deck that only plays 1 a skateboard, but technically we do play 1 a skateboard, so I apologise if anyone feels misled. Reduces your retreat cost by 1 and lets you retreat even if you're asleep or paralysed. We've got Air Balloon to reduce your retreat cost by 2 just in case you need that for one of your bigger Pokemon. And we've got Island Challenge Amulet, which we see as a one of a lot with Oricorio. Oricorio's a 2-prize Pokemon. We don't want to give up 2 prizes, so we whack Island Challenge Amulet on. It takes away 100 HP. It turns Oricorio into a 70 HP Pokemon, but it also means that it only gives up 1 prize rather than 2, and that is absolutely worth it, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I know that Krammer V also gives up 2 prizes, but if you're playing that, you're probably sniping something like a Dedenne off the bench. Totally worth it. I adore this deck, and partly it's my inherent love for Porygon, but also because we've now got Gossifleur for the early game, and we got Cramorant for a little bit of sniping, and then we've got Twin Energy. This deck is significantly better than it was before Sword and Shield came out. It is a weird deck, a sillier deck, a less usual deck, a more unusual deck, and you can hit ridiculous damage. If you can flip 3 heads, you will be KOing the majority of Pokemon out there, and you should do that on average if you can get 6 energy on. There'll be turns where you flip too many tails, and that's going to suck, but there's going to be plenty of turns where you hit just enough heads and win the game. Is this deck too luck-focused to really be a player in the metagame? Maybe. But it's not going to stop me testing it, and this is one of the best lists I've seen since this card came out. But at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about all of this. I want to know if you think this deck is legit. I want to know if you think this deck is good, or whether it's just not going to end up working. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/TheWassy. patreon.com/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WasseyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.